Okay, welcome to another episode of the History Hyenas. Closeted Chrissy, Yanni Yaya here. We're going to be talking today about the Netflix show we watched, Yannis and I watched, called Unorthodox. It's something I don't know. I don't even know. It's just about Hasidic Jews running wild, and then one of them escapes and gets to Germany, and we thought the perfect person to talk about this would be someone who escaped it himself, the great Moshe Kasher, who we know for a fact has got a circumcised penis, and I heard it's pretty big.
Who'd you hear that from, Yannis?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry about that, but in these hard times, I told him on the Patreon for money for our fans, and he slipped and just did it for free.
No, listen, if you're going to spread rumors, that's a good rumor to spread. Yeah, it's big, it's cut, it's thick, it's really great.
Yeah, and I wanted to wear these glasses to feel more Jewish, but they don't have frames, just FYI.
By the way, your producer, when they emailed me, called me Moshe, which I thought was a little bit anti-Semitic, but probably in tone with what we're about to do here.
Well, listen, we'll fucking burn her alive for you.
Yeah,
great.
Her name is Venetia. She's a black girl from the Bronx.
Well, she did her best.
She's trying her best, but you know what? She still wears Uggs, and she's upset because her job at Applebee's in Fulton Mall, Brooklyn, is on hold right now.
So, Moshe, babe, let me ask you this. So when we watch, because Yannis is the one who told me about it. He goes, you got to watch this show Unorthodox. It's fucking wild. And then I watch it. I couldn't stop watching it because I grew up, and Yannis and I both grew up in Brooklyn, a few train stops away from Williamsburg, which is now all Whole Foods and gentrified. But I would see the Hasidic Jewish people, going, like crossing the street and stuff. And, my grandpa, again, my grandpa's, old school guy. So he would say, hey, like, this Hasidic Jewish community, lock the doors. If you hit one of them, you get points or whatever. But we wouldn't. I'm just kidding. But my grandfather does not eat sushi because he fought in World War II. But
they fought in World War II as well. They just didn't win.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, listen, if you lose, you know what I mean? That's part of losing, guy. We don't eat fucking food anymore. So, no, but my question to you is, because I'm kidding, but I thought that, I understand it's a very closed off community, but like, because I've been around them so much and seen them, I'm like, I know what's going on. And then as soon as the show started, there was a silver line that was broken that would go around the neighborhood, and nobody could leave. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I've drove up and down these streets my whole life. I've never noticed the line. What's the line? What's it called?
Well, the line's called an Eruv, and it's something that you probably do you both live in Manhattan?
No, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. We're from Brooklyn.
You might live in an Eruv and not even know it, because it's this weird kind of legal fiction, basically you're not allowed to carry out things outside on Shabbat because that makes God angry for obvious reasons, right? That's clearly, if there is a God, that is definitely something that would piss him off, right?
Right.
So then they started to, Judaism is nothing if not arguments about little teeny tiny details about what they really mean by a law, right? So the law is don't carry things outside on Shabbat, but do they mean don't carry things into my courtyard because I got a whole wall around my courtyard? If I walk out of my house into my courtyard, am I really outside or confines of my yard? So they took it a step further, and they were like, well, what if there's a walled city? Well, Jerusalem is a city that's covered. There's a wall around the entire city. They're like, okay, you can carry things in Jerusalem. And then they took it a step further. It's called a legal fiction, where they're like, well, if we could make a little unbroken line of material from telephone towers to light poles to traffic signals to buildings to, if we could make a circle, just a thread around the whole neighborhood, well, then that's kind of like a wall, and then we could carry inside of that. And so when that thing gets broken, which is a constant thing that happens, those things get broken because of like the disrespect of the Gentile community coming around breaking our lines. You know what I mean?
Those bastards.
Yeah, these unholy filth throwing their sneakers on top of the line or whatever it is. Then some thick task force has to the Navy SEALs has to jump in and tie the line. So when that thing was broken, she couldn't walk outside of her front door with a bag.
But she did it anyway. She did it anyway in the show. But they were saying because she didn't have a baby, she was allowed to walk outside even though that thing was broken.
Well, it's not that she didn't have it because she didn't have a baby. It's that she didn't have a baby to carry. She didn't have any. It's all about carrying. so she couldn't walk outside with all of her accessories. So she had to stuff some money into her pocket, which she shouldn't have been touching on Shabbat anyway.
So if you're just going for a jog, you can run when that thing's broken. You're not carrying anything.
If you're going for a jog, no, you can't put your key in your pocket. You can't do that. But they have belts for that. They have key belts.
Right.
A lot of Hasidic Jews have a belt with a key built into the buckle so that they can go out for a walk.
So they find loopholes in their own laws.
Well, that's Judaism 101, is finding loopholes. They wouldn't consider it a loophole. They would consider it analyzing it to the point where they figured out, oh, actually, this is acceptable.
Right.
Well, I got a question for you. You're from this particular sect. You got out of the Hasidic Jewish community. At what point in your life did you realize that this was just fucking stupid?
Well, that's disrespectful, and I won't answer it. It's a complicated answer. I'm not like the person in that show. I didn't escape from that life. I grew up secular 9 months a year. I'm from Oakland. I grew up in public schools. I grew up a completely secular kid. And 3 months a year, I would fly back to New York, to Brooklyn, and spend my summer vacations on the set of Fiddler on the Roof, basically. So I don't have that internalized trauma that a lot of those people that have actually escaped have. I was already a regular kid. I have different kinds of trauma from trying to fit into that social world, but I wasn't religious most of the time. I would just go in like an alien visiting this culture.
Now,
so that's allowed? Yeah, I was going to say, how is that even allowed?
Was it your parents who got out and then were half out? How did you end up in that situation?
So it's a little bit of a complicated situation and a little bit of a complicated story. Anytime you start asking about my family, it's a long story, so cut me off if you get bored.
No, dude, go do it, dude. This is what I'm going to jerk off to. Go ahead.
Okay. That's actually not allowed, except if there's a line around your dick. You have to set one up. So basically, my parents, first of all, my parents are both deaf. So that's actually a kind of significant detail in how my family history in terms of Judaism came about. So both my parents are deaf. My family's actually not from the Satmar Hasidim. My family is from, actually, if you can believe it, a more hardcore sect of Hasidic Judaism up in upstate New York called New Square. They're called the Square Hasids. And in that neighborhood, the women don't drive. 100% of them voted for Hillary Clinton for senator. 100%, without one exception, because that's how lockstep they are. Like the rabbi said, we're voting for Hillary Clinton. Everybody in the population voted for him.
Yeah, well, they got that one wrong.
Yeah, well, she did win, but they're she won once. So religious, that side of my family, that my Satmar family, and I'll explain how they came about. When I had my bar mitzvah, the people in the show that you just watched were the most hardcore Hasidic Jews you could imagine, did the catering, and real family from the square wouldn't eat the catering because it wasn't enough for them. They brought their own bag lunches to my bar mitzvah. So that's how hardcore they are, right?
They got out koshered.
Yeah, they got out kosher. So my dad, my great grandfather moved here in 1912, and he sent for his family 15 years later, leaving my grandmother behind in Hungary. And by the time he sent for her, she was like, fuck. She was what Yannis was asking about. She was like, this is stupid. My father abandoned me to this bullshit religion. I'm out of here. So my grandma, the mother of my father, raised my father in Brooklyn, totally secular, not religious at all. But his grandfather was in this Skver Chassid world, right? So long story short, my dad was like a weird beatnik, artsy, deaf painter in the Lower East Side in the late 50s and 60s. And in the late 60s, my parents met. My mom wasn't religious. They got married. They were weirdo, beatnik artists, blah, blah, blah. They had a tumultuous relationship. 10 years later, they got a divorce. My mom moved us to California, where we were to be not religious at all. And my dad became religious again. He got born again, went the way of his grandfather, got born again. But now remember, he's like a deaf divorcee that wasn't religious for the first half of his life. So he's not exactly a hot commodity.
Right.
in that world. But
at that point, did you try to sign to him that this might be just a midlife crisis?
I was 4.
Dude, I love that he's like a deaf fucking painter. Once was a Hasidic Jew. If he was alive today, he'd have a comedy special on Netflix.
Yeah, it could be his own little nana.
Yeah, they just give that shit out now.
But he was looking for a religious woman to get married to, and there's very few religious Orthodox deaf women that, and if they weren't divorced and probably didn't want to marry divorced. Say, my stepmother happens to be a divorced deaf woman from the Satmar community, and in any other universe, a woman from the Satmar community wouldn't have been allowed to marry a man like my father, but because she was deaf and he was deaf, they thought this is as good as it'll be. They married them together, and then my father moved from Forest Hills. He was living at the time in Forest Hills. He moved us, his family, to a neighborhood in Brooklyn called Seagate. You guys know Seagate?
Seagate, yeah, sure.
I describe it in my act. If people don't know where it is, I say you take it to the F train for the last possible stop. You get off, walk past Coney Island, past the projects, past the people of color, through a gate, through a time portal to pre-Nazi Europe. You will then arrive.
It's true. It's true.
That's actually as accurate a description as you could say.
Yeah.
Well, and that was what my summer vacations were like, is I would fly to New York from my secular life. I would go to the Hasidic Jewish barber shop. He would attempt to give me as close of an approximation to a religious haircut as possible. My dad would throw a yarmulke on me and a pair of slacks and a dress shirt, and I would go to a Yiddish-speaking neighborhood for 6 weeks. And I didn't even know the Hebrew alphabet. I didn't know anything, and I would just kind of like sit there in agony for 6 weeks a year.
So why did you do it? Why couldn't he just be like, I don't want to do this?
We wanted to hang out with his dad.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, we want to spend time with his dad.
When I was a little kid, if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would say I want to be a baseball player or a Rebbe. And a rabbi. Neither of those things. I wasn't into baseball or Judaism. I was just trying really hard to find acceptance in two different communities: the athlete community and the Jewish community. Neither of which one had anything to do with me.
Now, did you see the show? Did you watch the show?
Yeah, I'm like 4 episodes in. Yeah.
How realistic? I mean, you obviously were never full in it, but from what you've observed, I mean, and what you know, how accurate is the portrayal? Because there's never really been a look inside that world like that. Yeah,
I would say that of anything I've ever seen, Unorthodox is probably the most accurate portrayal of a Hasidic community, but that I've ever seen on screen. But it's important to say, like, also that the Hasidic community isn't one thing. Like, you know, the Satmar, there's a story I always tell about this, which is like my brother was in college in Israel, and this Hasidic like outreach guy came to speak to the college, and he was telling these kids about how great Hasidic Judaism was, how nice it was, and my brother's getting angrier and angrier, and he's like, he finally just stands up, he's like, this is bullshit, like, you know, I grew up in this community, and these people, they were mean to me, they were judgmental, they were cruel, they were gossipy. And the outreach guy goes, can I just ask, very gently, very sweet guy, he goes, can I ask what sects of Hasidic Judaism you grew up in? And my brother was like, well, Skver and Satmar. And the guy kind of winced, and he's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but like, in the 2 shittiest sects of Hasidic Judaism you could have possibly grown up in.
Really?
So it's not really a picture of what Hasidic Judaism is like, period. It really is a picture of what the Satmar community is like. I don't mean to say that they're shitty, but they are severe. They're the most severe, hardcore, almost, I would say, my personal experience, completely unfriendly group of Hasidic Jews you could meet.
And they're getting in a lot of trouble in New York right now because, like, especially just yesterday or 2 days ago, there was, I guess it was the Satmar community that would be in Borough Park. Would that be that community? That would be Borough Park, Brooklyn?
Yeah, that sounds right.
They were having like a 500-person funeral in the middle of the street with all like the social distancing laws, and the cops were just playing loud music over their music to try to get them to disperse, and they didn't disperse. So Governor Cuomo today, the governor of New York, it went from a $500 fine to a $10,000 fine now. So now you get fined $10,000 if you're not socially distancing. And unfortunately, like all over, like, you know, where I live in Bay Ridge, it's a very conservative neighborhood. And like the councilman here just wrote like a post like, hey guys, you know, social distancing, like didn't mention anything. And all the comments like, it's the fucking Hasidic Jews. And they're spelling it like Joos. They're being like HA space SIDICK. It's just like the anti-Semitism now is going to this extreme, and I want to be like, hey, that's not all Jews, and even because my whole thing was like, do the Hasidic Jewish people, do they not speak English? Do they not know? Maybe they can't understand what social distancing is, or are they just being so, fucking being like, fuck you guys, we don't apply by your laws?
Well, I want to say first of all that to the people of Bay Ridge, the good news is there's nothing that's going to motivate my people to do anything like a hefty fine. So I think that that's probably going to change pretty rapidly. But there's something important to understand about the Hasidic Jews, period. But specifically the Satmar community, which is the community that you're interacting with is not the same community that left Europe. It's a community that's been that's completely the engine of the Hasidic Judaism, and specifically the Satmar Chassids is fueled by the memory of the Holocaust, and the community is so shattered and so almost completely, literally destroyed that the group that you're interacting with now, they all have this like intergenerational trauma and memory of this, which is part of their ideological reason for being so I don't want to say unfriendly, kind of isolated, separated from everybody else. After the Holocaust, they literally said, listen, let's just build a wall around our community. The world is shit. No one likes us. They're going to kill us. I mean, can you imagine what you would think of the non-Jewish after the Holocaust?
Yeah.
And they just said, all that's holy is what we've got here. So fuck the world. Let's build a wall around our community and save what little we have left of our society. So now you've got a group that lives in New York that they're still living in Hungary from 100 years ago, who doesn't necessarily listen to or respect the laws around. I mean, they follow the law, but they also are much more concerned with their own internal.
Yeah. I felt as that show went on, when she went to Berlin, the main character, the woman goes to Germany to escape to escape her sect. She goes to Berlin where her mother is, and when her husband from the Hasidic community goes to follow her and his like henchman, whose name is Moshe in the show.
Finally a gangster named Moshe. I was so thrilled, man.
I fucking love it, dude. You earned it. And I felt like all they kept doing, anything that this girl said, Moshe and her husband would say, how many, that's where the Germans decided that they were going to kill the Jews. This land right here, you think it's just a playground, but it's where all these Jews died. And everything was like, remember all this pain. And there was a part of me not being a part of that religion, be like, at what point, not that you forget that ever, but at what point are you just like, hey, like, that was so long ago, like, let's try to be happy and move forward. And that was one. And then the second thing, because I was like, why do they have so many children? Like, you always see Hasidic, where my daughter was born in Maimonides Hospital, is a large amount of the Hasidic community gives birth there. And they have so many children. The women have so many children. And they said in the show, they were like, because they want to repopulate the 6 million Jews that were lost in the Holocaust. And I was like, oh, so there's like, it's not mindless. Like, they're not just fucking like jackrabbits, and they're not just, they're not just not talking to me because they don't like me. There's have reasons for it that I saw in the show.
Well, I mean, it's like human development doesn't work in straight lines, right? It's like something happens and it pings your destiny into another direction. And so then all of a sudden you find yourself 100 years later in a community where you're not friendly to your neighbors, and you maybe have made a lot of choices that don't bring you into the modern world, and you're not really with the times, and you've got serious problems with equity between men and women. But it all started 100 years ago with a decision to try to save yourself from the devastation of the Holocaust. So it's like, yeah, from your perspective, my perspective, it's like, hey, stop it. Just don't be like that anymore. From their perspective, they're locked down this trail of decision-making that started a long time ago. I'll tell you.
How many sects are there? Do we know?
Of Hasidic Judaism, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I think there's really, Go ahead.
The ones you see the most often are actually pretty friendly. They're the ones that are on the street. Yannis, you look
Oh yeah,
pretty Jewy. They probably ask. Yeah, they say, "Are you Jewish?" Right? Those guys are from Chabad Lubavitch, and the Chabad Lubavitch are the biggest organization of Hasidic Jews, and they're very nice. They're very friendly. They're very in the world. They're very religious, but they're cool. And they decided, I'm going to go into the world to like bring joy into it and stay here. The Satmar are the second biggest, and they were like, fuck that, let's withdraw into our city within a city.
Right.
How do they feel about each other? Do they acknowledge each other? Do they fight with each other? Do they?
Well, Chabad in particular has some problems with the other Hasidic Jewish, because at one point they had a big leader. They're the main rabbi of the Chabad movement, which is the guy that kind of started them out into the street. He was like a charismatic leader. He's the reason you see them so often, because he's like, look at the world, let's go save all the Jews, whatever. That guy, they thought he was the Messiah. They were all convinced he was the Messiah, like they were 100%. And then he died, which presents a pretty peculiar problem when you think he's the Messiah and he doesn't declare himself to be the Messiah, he's dead. So then a lot of them, about half of them, but maybe even more when he died, were like, actually, he didn't die. He's still here, and he's going to come back. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That sounds like a familiar story.
Yeah, that's right. It's so that idea is still alive. He's coming back was so much like Christianity to people that a lot of the surrounding Hasidic Jewish groups were like, these guys are fucking crazy. We can't fuck with them. And eventually that all calmed down. But yeah, they beef. They do beef.
How do you think the Hasidic community would feel about Ari Shafir's Twitter?
About wait. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you my strategy for when a media personality asks me about something like that. Ari, Louis, so ask me again, and I'll give you my. This is what I.
So here's a question we have from our listeners. How do you think the Hasidic community would feel about Ari Shafir's Twitter?
You know, actually, that's a topic that deserves a lot of consideration, and it's one that I haven't thought enough about to really feel qualified to answer. I think the important thing is to let the Hasidic community speak to that themselves rather than me weighing in on this one.
Shalom, bitch.
What do you think?
Yo, let me tell you something, Moshe. I got to be honest with you. Here's a couple of things that I know. Because I said my daughter was born in Maimonides Hospital, and we had a doula, right? So the doulas, they're the Jewish wizards that they could the babies, they just know how to do everything with babies. It's like unfucking believable. And they told me, they were like, because my kid's mom, they were supposed to be born like May 15th, wasn't born to May 19th. So like 2 days later, it's like, the past the due date, she's in so much pain, blah, blah, blah. And the doula says, well, have you tried swallowing the semen? And we said, excuse me? Like religious
like
Jewish
a religious woman? Really?
Religious doula in the hospital. She was like, yeah, she goes, there's properties in the semen that relax the vaginal walls and will cause dilation, but it's only got to be swallowed. So
that actually tracks. There's a pretty, we don't like to talk about it a lot, but like Jews, we love to drink cum. It's like a big part of our religion. Like gallons and gallons, the more the better.
I mean, yeah, you guys are sucking dicks in the circumcisions, right? Aren't the priests, don't they do that?
That's a topic that I've given a lot of consideration to, and I really haven't thought about it enough to be able to speak to it. But the line around the neighborhood, one long straw, like you remember in Brazil, the movie Brazil, where it was all long straw, and there's a guy at the other end of it just like furiously. It's a line, it's like a fireman line, and it's just a bunch of Hasidic Jews ejaculating into it, so the whole community can get a sip. I don't want to give all of our secrets away, but yeah.
Fucking great, dude. Cum dumpers.
Is this a true story?
100% accurate. Yes.
Chris,
I'll tell you.
True?
What's that, Christian?
I was asking Chris, is that a true story?
That's a true story. That, and then also, I told you, my Aunt Colleen.
What did she mean by that? What did she mean by that?
I don't know. That's what she said to do. And then, I got a very angry BJ about 2 hours later, and my baby was born about 6 hours later. It worked.
Wait, were you in the hospital or were you at home at that time?
They told us to go home. And then, I was so excited. I was driving her home. I was trying to get roadhead for my 9 months pregnant, but wasn't working. Because
our angle's difficult.
Exactly, because I had a Toyota, and the goddamn console was in. If I would have had a newer car like a Tesla or something like that, or push to start, would have been great.
Your uncle would have been so upset to see you driving a Toyota, right?
I know, dude. I know. Well, thank God the coronavirus killed him. Yeah, we did it, swallowed it. I had a fucking nice juicy load, ready to go, ready to pop.
I've heard about that.
And then it was perfect. And then the baby was born.
That's one of the beautiful things about like folk remedies like that. It's like a woman is 9 months pregnant. She's going to give birth. So the folk psychic person is always going to be right. Like,
sure.
She gives you a blowjob and then the baby comes. You're like, I told you, all you got to do is drink the cum. But
I could have told you anything aside from kick her in the stomach, and it would have worked.
Yeah, my dad said, my dad was like, slap her in the back of the head and yell, Trump 2020, your kid will be born in minutes. And he was right.
Bay Ridge, bitch.
Bay Ridge.
But I thought when you told the story, you were still in the hospital. I kept picturing her in the hospital bed waiting to give birth. The woman comes in. You're like, could you give us a minute? And then you're straddling one of those like moving.
Well, no.
You press the bed up and down. I mean, it kind of does the work for you.
Well, no, I started pushing the head down of the doula because I just thought she meant anybody's cum.
I'll tell you.
For you. Why do they shave the heads and put the wigs on when they get married?
All right, so that's okay. Now we're getting into the specifics of Satmar and how severe they are, right? So the reason Orthodox women cover their heads is that there's something in the Bible or the Talmud or something that says that the beauty of a woman should only be observed by her husband, right? And for some reason, it's some biblical shit. They thought that the beauty of the woman was their hair, right? And probably that same idea is the reason that Muslim women cover their faces for the same kind of reason.
Oh, I thought they were covering it because of COVID-19. I thought it was a social distancing thing.
They do look like geniuses now. They do look like they were ahead of. They were out front in front of everybody on
that. So that's the reason that Orthodox women all over cover their hair, right? And at some point, they started wearing wigs, which I don't quite see the difference, but whatever. But the Satmar, for some reason, the Satmar in particular, are like, actually shave your head underneath the covering, which takes away the original reason to be covering your head in the first place. That when you take it off, your husband's going to get like a big old hair boner, right? Which we all do when we see a woman's uncovered hair. Now I don't know how they got there, but like I said, Judaism is nothing but a like weird argument, like a maybe it meant this, maybe it meant that, maybe it mean this, until you get to a weird conclusion that doesn't even make sense. So that's Satmar. Most Hasidic Jewish women don't shave their heads. That's particular to that sect, and I think maybe one other sect.
Got it.
Okay. You were asking about English. It reminded me whether they speak English. It reminded me of a story from my childhood. But I will say first of all that like in New Square, the people would speak Yiddish until they were 13, and then when they were 13, they would start learning English, and they all would work at the same place, so the level of English wasn't really necessary. It didn't have to be sophisticated English. Whatever. The point is, I go there, and one of the rabbis in Seagate he was a very nice guy, and he took a shine to me. He probably felt sorry for me because I wasn't religious and I didn't know what I was doing, and he could you please get your fucking daughter out of?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, you can't come any closer. There is a Jew on the computer. So you have to stay over there.
Wait, your daughter.
Wait, what? Okay, baby. Okay, thank you. I'm going to be right out, okay? Shabbat.
Go back in there.
Shabbat shalom.
Baby, Daddy's talking to his landlord right now. Go back in.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
At any rate, this rabbi, he was the leader of the community. He, for some reason, felt sorry for me, and he would give me lessons in Hebrew. Like after his work, he would let me come. I would come to his house and he would teach me the alphabet, which is like way, way, way below the pay grade of a local rabbi, right? He shouldn't be teaching some random kid the alphabet. And I was struggling with it because I wasn't good at it, and I was embarrassed, and I was always embarrassed in that community. 100% of the time, I was trying to be invisible. It was just humiliating to be around them all the time. Like they spoke Yiddish as a first language. I didn't even know Hebrew. And Hebrew is like a baseline, right? Everybody knows that. And it was so embarrassing. He was very nice to me. And I was trying to get the alphabet. And he saw that I was struggling. And he was like, don't be embarrassed. You're embarrassed? Hold on. And he called his son and he's like, Shbudli or whatever. He's like, come in here. And this like 12-year-old kid walks in. He's like, do the alphabet in English. This is a kid born and raised in America. His dad was born and raised in America. He goes, do the alphabet. 12-year-old kid. He goes, A, B, C, G. He didn't know the fucking alphabet. And he lived in New York.
Oh my God.
Wow,
And that was his kind.
Holy fuck.
That's how insulated, and that's his version of kindness too. Is he was like, "Hold on, you embarrassed? Let me humiliate my son for you."
He sounds Dominican.
Wow,
that's fucking wild. I mean, honestly, man, it's just so now, Moshe. Now you have, obviously, got a wife, got a kid, and your kid. No religion for your kid now. Just whatever they want to do.
No, we're Jews. We're still Jews. I'm still a Jew. I mean, I think I got lucky in that. I didn't get, like I said, I didn't get a lot of the trauma of that community. Like, I mean, I did get some trauma, but it was so temporary. It was so like I was an escape that I never had to like really. It didn't internalize in me. So it's like now, yeah, I celebrate the holidays. I have a very loose affiliation. I wear it like a loose garment. I get what I get out of it. Are you still Catholic at all?
I am. So you want to talk about trauma? I mean, yeah, try being an altar boy under Father Bill, who's one of the fucking Hall of Fame. You've never seen a Hall of Famer with sex crimes with Father Billy Boy.
Well, no, I remember him from the end of the straw. He would come by once in a while in the Jewish neighborhood to get.
I bet he would. Yeah, yeah. Anything that didn't land on my face would go to the straw.
I had I grew up, a lot of my friends were Jewish in Park Slope, Brooklyn, but also on the corner, and they were all Reformed Jews. They all had Christmas trees, whatever, secular trees. But on the corner of my block was a Hasidic Jewish rabbi and his family, and he started like a preschool up there, and they were always really super nice. So they must have been from one of the friendlier sects because they would build the shack outside. As a kibbutz?
The sukkah.
They would build a sukkah. They would invite us in and give us cookies and milk and stuff like that. And I would always be like, "This is nice, but I mean, come on, cookies and milk. Where's the ice cream? Let's step it up a little bit." So they were nice, but
they were frugal. They were frugal.
A little frugal. I mean, the cookies and milk. It was like, "Where's the ice cream? I'm 12 years old." But no, I'm joking. They were super, super nice, super open, super friendly. They let us come in. They let us play baseball. So.
That's, I think, an important point to make about Unorthodox. I know you guys are all about historical accuracy and never 100%. Making any mistakes. Yeah. So it's important to note that Unorthodox is a picture of the Satmar community. And I don't know if it's it's a TV show, so it's a dramatic picture of the Satmar community. It happens to line up with my personal experience with that community pretty well, that they weren't very friendly, but there are friendly Satmar Jews, and there are many very friendly Satmar sects. I mean, but again, it's Holocaust trauma, a lot of that unfriendliness. I'll tell you guys another story. This is one of the worst memories of my childhood life.
Can't wait.
Although it was so bad, you almost couldn't help but enjoy it a little bit. At my stepsister's wedding, she was getting married. It was a big Orthodox affair, and we had this. My stepmother's mother, so my step-grandmother, was a Holocaust survivor. And, that's one of the things about the Holocaust survivors that nobody likes to talk about. We always think of them as like, oh, because you see the ones on TV, they're these very like serious, thoughtful, sweet people that are warning us about repeating the sins of our past. But the truth is that a lot of them, they were in the fucking Holocaust. So they came out pretty fucking awful personality-wise. You know what I mean? Like, right. they didn't like bounce back into a sweetheart like a Santa Claus. Like, actually, there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He's a psychiatrist that survived the Holocaust himself. He has a really chilling line in that book. He's like, basically, what needed to take place in the concentration camps in order to survive was ruthlessness, survival of the fittest, and making sure that you made it no matter what happened. And so there's a line in there that he says, everybody that made it out of the concentration camps lives with the fear, the shame, the knowledge that the best of us perished in the camps. Because the people that were giving away half of their rations to save their neighbor were the people that starved to death. And the people that were trying to be kind, not to say nobody was kind that made it, but really what it took was you had to make it out of there. Whatever.
Wow.
That's something, thank you for sharing that. That is something that is kind of like right in front of your nose if you think about it, but nobody ever talks about that. That seems like it makes sense when you think about it. Like, wow, like that never even crossed my mind.
It's pretty powerful. You know, if you guys are interested in that subcategory of what we're talking about, there's a really amazing movie on a documentary series on Netflix called The Devil Next Door.
Yeah.
We saw it. Did you watch it? Chris, did you see it?
Oh, absolutely. I saw it. I watched. Yeah, it was great.
To me, that shows you real community that was shattered. I mean, you just can't wrap your brains around what it is like to be in a community that is still alive and remembers when they were almost completely destroyed and shattered. I mean, maybe we'll all remember that 50 years from now from the great COVID debacle that we were going through.
That's what it is, yeah. Finish off the Jews.
So my step-grandmother...
I'm kidding. I'm just...
I got it. My step-grandmother... It'd be crazy if you weren't kidding. That would be a wild...
If I was like, finish off the Jews. Moshe, where can they catch you? Where are you performing next?
Well, they've taken away my livelihood. I'm performing nowhere, and that will finish me off.
It's like a new Holocaust for you.
It's my life force. Okay, but anyway... my step-grandmother was one of those people that didn't come out sweeter than when she went in, surprise, surprise, to the concentration camp.
There you go.
So we're at this wedding, and they're doing the photos, the family photos of the whole family, and it's me and my dad and his new kids and his wife, and just the whole, it's a big picture. It's like 20 people. And then my step-grandmother, she steps in, she goes, okay, let's do one more picture, just the family. Moshe, David, could you step out of the picture? And they took the same picture with like 18 people in it, but me and my brother were asked to step to the side. People from the first
Yeah.
It's so great.
I remember in part of that movie, The Devil Next Door, I remember someone saying like, yeah, like the other Jews, like the ones who were testifying, saying that was him. The other Jews were going like, hey, what did you do? What did you have to do that you survived? Like they were skeptical, like thinking they did something highly unscrupulous, or they collaborated with the Germans in some way, you know, in the camp to save themselves and not others. And they kind of lived with that, right?
Well, that's what's so complicated about, and you know, now we're finally at the point in history where there's almost no Holocaust survivors left, and so that direct line to trauma is getting slowly pruned, but that was what was so complicated for Jews in the last 50, 60, 70 years, was that everybody that made it out not only felt guilt because people that they knew and loved were gone, but also other people that were looking at them were like, who were you in the camps that you were able to make it out? Everybody had this like trickle down trauma, and like, and I just say it again, like if the Holocaust had never happened, the Satmar community would not be that community. The unfriendliness that you may have experienced in the streets of New York, you wouldn't have experienced it in the same way. In Europe, before the Holocaust, they're not friendly to me either. It's like when I walk down the street and I see a Hasidic Jew, there's a part of me that wants to give him like a black eye nod, like, because I'm like, oh, that's my dude right there. But he looks at me, he would never want to give me a nod. But, again, people aren't monoliths either. There's a lot of people in all of these communities that are cool, chill, friendly, awesome people. It's just that the hierarchy, and it is hierarchy. It's one rabbi telling everybody what to do all the way down. That's what Hasidic Judaism is. That they have made different decisions. And if you were lucky enough to be born into a Chabad family, then the decision they make is to give the little Greek boys in the neighborhood milk and cookies. And if you're unlucky enough to be born in one of the more severe communities, then they say, don't ever talk to non-Jews. They want to kill us. Okay, well, you're not going to be very friendly if that's the message from on high.
Right. I mean, this is fascinating, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. I mean, Jan, do you have any more questions? Because that was great. I
mean, this is unbelievable. I got one more question. How do the rabbis become rabbis? Is it an election process? Is it you're born into a family? How is it you're appointed by a council? How does that work?
Well, okay, so there's a difference between a rabbi and a rebbe. That was the thing I said I wanted to be in the beginning. Every Hasidic Jewish sect is led one mega rabbi. That's what it means to be a Hasidic Jew, is that you have a mega rabbi at the top who's in charge of everything. And there's an interesting quote my brother was telling me about yesterday when I was talking about this podcast and that I was going to be talking about Satmar. He said that, like, every Rebbe, so that's what a Rebbe is. A Rebbe is the mega rabbi that leads the community. A rabbi is like the guy that was teaching me the alphabet. He's a community leader. He leads prayer services. He's a direct contact to the people. The Rebbe is much more, it's like senator versus the president, right? The Rebbe is the president of the Hasidic sect. And he said that there's a saying in Hasidic Judaism that every Rebbe is either a saint or a general, right? And the saints are like holy men that are sweet and lead by being that kind of like, you know, the Dalai Lama type. And the generals are the people that are like, this is what we do. We are in lockstep. Here are the rules. Follow me into the battle. And the Satmar Rebbe, the famous Satmar Rebbe, was definitely the general of generals. That is what he was. But to become a regular rabbi, you know, it really depends on what kind of rabbi you are. My brother's a rabbi. He went to school. He basically went to like graduate divinity school, went to school for years and years, and then he got what's called smicha, which is the ordination process. It's much more like being a Catholic priest, where there's a very specific kind of thing that you have to do. You have to like make out with a kid or something like that, and then you become.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And like there's a process. With the Hasidic Jews, it's a little bit more like getting a black belt in a martial art. It's like one of the big dogs says, okay, you're a rabbi now.
It's like getting passed at the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah. I wouldn't know, guys. I wouldn't know what that's like.
This is amazing, man. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Thank you.
You guys.
Yeah.
Where do you got a podcast or a website people can check out?
Let me plug some shit. I have a brand new comedy album out. If you're sitting around with nothing to do, it's a good thing to do. It's called Crowd Surfing Volume 1. It's an all crowd work album. I'm super proud of it. It's super good. And then Natasha, my wife, and I have a Netflix special and a podcast that we do together called the Endless Honeymoon Podcast, where we do live relationship advice. People call in and we give them relationship advice. So check out any of those things.
Beautiful.
If you're really interested in my Hasidic upbringing and my weird life, I wrote a whole book about it. It's called Kasher in the Rye, like catcher.
Great name. Fucking 10 out of 10 name.
Sweet. You guys, thank you.
All right, Bubbas. Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye. And where's the rent? Pay the fucking rent. Seriously. I agree to do this podcast, but I want my money.
All right.
Ha 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 ha!